the steps to strategically assess your customer's identity. Here we start with a very simple question that ties back to Simon Sinek's TED Talk, where we simply say to ourselves, what is our consumer's identity? I cannot tell you how many folks, smart people in very, very powerful, very, 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 very well thought of companies, have not thought to ask this question, right? Have not thought to think through this. And so what I try to tell consumers, brands, people who are interested in trying to do this, just try to think about what your consumer's identity is, right? Here's the point, guys. Consumers have lots of identities. The self-concept is made up of these different identities. So Americus is not one person. Americus is a professor, he's a father, he's a musician, he's a self-proclaimed athlete, right? I'm all these different things. I'm all of these different things. And in fact, what's very interesting about this analysis is that when I'm actually in one of these different identities, I'm a completely different person. Totally different person. When I'm doing my sports, my athletic sort of stuff, I'm aggressive, I'm intense, I'm a little bit mean, I'm a little bit off-putting because I'm trying to get into that competitive sort of Michael Jordan, sort of like killer instinct, right? When I'm a father, suddenly I'm like nurturing and calm and patient and caring and loving and all of these wonderful things, right? But here's the point, guys. These different identities cause us to prefer different stuff, right? You can think of Americus as these multiple target segments that you can try to talk to me to try to create a connection between one of these identities, right? Some of these identities are more central than others, right? And these identities may be dominant in one situation over another. So when I'm at the gym, guess what? My athletic identity is super prime, super salient. When I'm home with my daughter, guess what? Daddy identity comes to the fore. What's the point? The point is this. The point is that you have an opportunity to look at me like a multiple segment. And if you can figure out what drives any of these particular identities with me, you have the ability to create a product that can connect with me in a much deeper way. Okay? And so what I advise companies to do is to try to figure this out. Try to do the analysis. Try to measure all of these things that will give you this map, right? Here's this map of this hypothetical woman. She has a professional identity, right? She's a partner in her professional identity. She also volunteers as part of her professional endeavors. She's a sister and a daughter. Here are the traits that are associated with this, right? Each of these different identities. You can create, this is a map. This is kind of like a psychographic map. That's what's inside the person. You can create that using tools that are readily available, right? And so what I tell companies, try to figure this out. Try to understand what identities are there in your target segment and try to understand how you might be able to start making this potential very powerful connection with these consumers. I want to show you a little bit. This is a little bit of a hairy slide, but this is an analysis that we did for a professional sports team that will remain unnamed. And what they asked us to do, they asked us to come in and please take a look at what we're doing with respect to making our fans happy on game day. And the very first thing I asked them is, show me your psychographic data. And they said, what's that? And I said, okay, great. How do you segment your fan base? And they said, well, we go by, the seats in the stadium. So there's different sections in the stadium, and so that's how we segment. We segment certain sorts of things, certain sorts of experiences to this group, certain other experiences to these other groups, etc. And what we said was, okay, scrap that. Let's try to understand, let's do a survey where we understand their identity as sports fans and why they have strong identification with your team, right? Let's measure these identity dimensions, and I have it obscured here to protect the client. And then let's see to what extent that connects to certain things that they value as part of their particular game day experience. So all this is another structural equation model. All it's doing is saying, let me measure people's sense of who they are, and not unlike that map I showed you in the previous slide, and let me correlate those clusters with their perceptions of what's important relative to the product that you put out there in terms of its attributes. Why do you do that? Well, it then tells you for this particular customer base that has this identity dimension, and it will not overlap with seats where they're sitting, but it overlaps with who they are. right? In that particular setting now, you have a prioritization of what attributes can I speak to that are most strongly related to these expression that people want to have about who they are, right? Very simple analysis. We do this analysis in my class, Marketing 711. Maybe some of you guys took this. Very simple analysis to do. It begins to start painting the picture. What are the components about how these people see each other, and then how do these components relate to something I offer in my product, right? So you're making that connection between attributes and self-expression, and what you're allowing yourself to do is not make a mistake by choosing the wrong identity dimension to try to tell your story around for your particular product. Because if you choose the wrong identity dimension, here's what happens, right? You goof up. This is real. I can't make this stuff up, right? This is big for her, right? So here you go. Here's a pen to express your style. There you go. It's beautifully smooth. There you have it, okay? So the question becomes, okay, so this is being obviously positioned toward an identity, gender identity, positioned toward women. How are they going to react to this? Well, what are your attributes? What's your argument? What is the relationship between identity and what you do in this particular context? Here's the answer. Well, here are the key benefits. It's a retractable ballpoint pen, medium point, 1.0 millimeters, fun, comfort, grip, modern design. There you go. A ball pen essentially for women. Guys, come on. Here's what happens when you do that, right? You get the blogosphere blows up, right? Finally, pens for women. Well done, Bic. I'm just thankful it was only my son that grabbed the Bic for her and not my husband. I'm writing this from the kitchen. Finally. For years, I've had to rely on pencils or at worst a twig and some drops of my feminine blood. I had despaired of ever being able to write down said recipes in a permanent manner, though my menfolk assured me that I shouldn't worry my pretty little head. But at last, Bic, the great liberator, has released a womanly pen that my gentle baby hands can use without fear of unladylike calluses and bruises. Thank you, Bic, right? Here's more. Can these pens be bought individually? I only intend to write things until I find a man and get married. So it's a waste of my hard-earned money and secretary salary to buy the pack. Best thing about this pen, it looks so stylish tucked behind my ear while I'm perched on my corner of my boss's desk flirting with him. I was disappointed to find that only 1/5 of the pens I received were pink, or maybe more. I can't do maths. Right? Next thing you know, popular culture picks us up. Here's what happens.
So, on my show, what I like to do is I like to promote kindness and equal rights, and I don't like labels, and I don't see color. I'm like a Cocker Spaniel in that way. And I don't like pointing out differences between people, especially men and women, and I thought that women, we've made a lot of progress towards equality, and we're allowed to vote, and I think since 1982 now. And we can wear pants, we can drive at night, all those things. And then I saw something that makes me think we still have a little bit of ways to go. It's a new product from Bic, the pen company. And they have a new line of pens called Bic for Her. And this is totally real. They're pens just for ladies. I know what you're thinking, it's about damn time. Where have our pens been? Can you believe this? We've been using man pens all these in both lady colors, pink and purple. And they're just like regular pens, except they're pink, so they cost twice as much. That is absolutely true as well. The worst part is they don't come with any instructions. So, like, how do they expect us to learn how to write with them, you know?
We laugh at this, right? We laugh at this, but it's a serious sort of problem, right? It's funny because when I show my students this, I sometimes get some pushback. They say, "Well, Americus, isn't bad PR better than no PR? So isn't this free advertising?" And my answer to them is, actually, that's a silly question because the options aren't bad PR or no PR. There's a third option called good PR, right? And so you can avoid these kinds of things, right? You can avoid these kinds of things if you have some kind of insight, some kind of attempt to kind of think about who is my customer, what are they like, their identities, and you try to map those things on. Here's another example. So this was, so sales actually went down for a little bit. They pulled it immediately, right? They pulled it immediately, so, and then apologized. So in this world today of social media where everything just jumps out there way, in an accelerated fashion, they had to kind of jump in and say, hey, we're sorry. So at worst, sales obviously came back, but the point is, why have that dip in the first place, especially based on something so stupid? And in fact, when we actually ask consumers, what's your perception of Bic, they just simply say, these people are, it may not matter for a pen necessarily, but you certainly aren't making any friends by doing this kind of stuff, right? In fact, you're probably making people believe that you don't know what you're doing from a marketing perspective.
But it came back with the same name for her?
No, completely revamped. Completely revamped. Oh yeah, you can't get rid of it, right? Until somebody buys it. Yeah. Here's another example that I think is kind of amazing, right? So this is Lands. You guys hear about this? You guys hear about Lands End? This was huge. So Lands End, basically, we got to reward our customers, people who purchase more than $100 or more. We're going to send them a free magazine. And this was the magazine that they decided to send out to their customer base, right? So basically, you've got GQ, and you got a picture of kind of a naked supermodel that goes out to a bunch of customers who spent a lot of money recently with your brand. And of course, what happens is, I'm showing you this because, again, these aren't dummies, right? This is a legitimate company, but I'm showing you this because you get this kind of reaction. Again, the blogosphere blows up. My 14-year-old son brought in the mail today and was quite disturbed and fascinated by a gift. Lands End sent us a copy of GQ magazine with an absolutely obscene cover. Or this, I ordered Christian private school children's uniforms from your company, and you sold my home address to a magazine company that peddles in soft porn for men? What are you doing? Right? Again, misaligned, not knowing who your customer is, not understanding what's going on in terms of their identity. CEO jumped out, made a huge apology, said, hey, we were just trying to send some lifestyle information. GQ is known for lifestyle. Sorry. Again, you don't have to make these kind of goof ups.